Hello for the 26th Sunday in Ordinary Time, using only the Gospel, Matthew 21:28 to 32. Little something different this morning. I just want to ask you a question. And the question is this: has God ever asked you to do something special? Has God ever asked you in a special way to work in His vineyard? And, well, it's because of the gospel. The two sons, which son did the will of the Father and went and worked into the vineyard? And which son didn't? The difference is, I'm just going to give you 4 examples sort of in my life and see if there is anything like that in your life. Has God asked you to do anything different? Well, one is this past week, as far as in our book club, we dealt with St. Augustine. And one of the quotes of St. Augustine is when he was a bishop in Hippo, getting old, and he wrote something like the history of his life or looking back in his life, and he said this: "Late have I loved you, O beauty ever present, ever ancient, ever new. Late have I loved you. You called, you shouted, and you shattered my deafness." God finally got Augustine late in life. It took his mother, Monica, praying for 18 years maybe. But he sowed his wild oats. He did his things as portrayed in the Confessions of St. Augustine. And when he was getting older and he looked at his life and said, "Late have I loved you, O God," or "O beauty." I love that quote. I used it on my first Mass card when you give out a little Mass card with the dates and stuff for your first Mass and ordination and stuff. But that's one. It seemed like Augustine found. The other is my godmother, Aunt Dot. And I remember visiting her in the nursing home when she was early 80s, totally coherent. And we'd have good discussions. She always was interested in what you were doing and how was it going, and as being a priest or baby priest, new priest. And she told me, she says, "Larry, I think God still has something special for me to do. And I've been looking for this all my life." I felt sorry for my godmother. 80, and you're still looking. But on the other hand, beautiful, because you're still looking. I don't think she ever found it, but I don't think she ever gave up looking. Does God have something special for me to do in my life? And the third example is, well, I gave a homily once on today's gospel at the Newman Center. And which one did the will of the Father? And I says, I had a priest friend once, and I liked clocks, electrical things, but mechanical things, like a grandfather clock. I couldn't afford a grandfather clock, so I paid $300, $250, I think, way back when, early in 1969, 1971. And I sent it off to Emperor Clock Company kits. And I got all this stuff in a box to put the wood in the guts of the clock and put it together, because that's the only way I could get a grandfather clock. But you know what? I couldn't put it together. So I went and visited a priest friend and asked him, and we were talking. He is a nut on clocks, and he had all these grandfather clocks, cuckoo clocks, all over his apartment. And I said, "Bill, I have this grandfather clock in a box. And I'm sort of looking for somebody to put it together. I'll do it. I love to do it. I love to work with wood, and I love to do. I'll do it. Really? So I brought it. 89 miles away, I brought it to Northern Kentucky. Gave it to him in the summer. Well, I thought I'd have it by Christmas. Nothing better than a grandfather clock at Christmas time. And so I went back for Christmas. He touched it. He took 4 boards and made the box where the pendulums went and nailed them together or put them together. Well, okay. Well, I went back 2 months later, still same 4 boards. I went back at the end of Lent, right before Easter, and I thought, well, maybe he'd do it for his penance during Lent. He didn't. I went back at the end of the summer, still the 4 boards. So I took my clock. And in the fall, like now, with this reading, I preached at the Newman Center, who did the will of the Father? Which of the 2 sons? And I said, certainly the priest, friend of mine, didn't do my will. 2 people from the congregation says, Father, give me that box of clock. We'll put it together. And by golly, that clock that you hear ticking or going off in these, when I give these homilies, that's the clock that 2 wonderful people put together to do my will so I could have that grandfather clock. And finally the 4th, where did God ask me to do anything? Well, when I was in high school, I thought, well, maybe God's asking me to be a priest. My oldest brother didn't go in. My second oldest brother didn't go in. And people were saying, Larry, you ought to go in. My reaction to that was somewhat like one of these sons. They didn't say it, but I said, over my dead body, I am not going into the seminary. And that was my attitude. And that was my attitude when I graduated from high school. I registered at Villa Madonna College or at Thomas More College to take chemistry. And that's what I wanted to do. Take chemistry, get married or whatever, but over my dead body. 1 week before the seminaries opened, I got this terribly deep feeling need to talk to somebody about this. And I went in, there's a clock. And I went into the confessional one Saturday afternoon and says, Father, I think maybe Jesus is asking me to be a priest. Oh, it's wonderful. Well, you really mean that? We can't just talk here. We need to talk outside the confessional. And we did. Well, in 1 week, I decided to go in the seminary because I give it a try. And try it because I thought Jesus is asking me to do this. When I said the absolute no over my dead body. And then a week before the seminary in Kentucky was filled, so I couldn't get in it. My classmates from high school, 3 of them went there. Well, they had to send me to a special seminary because I was a Larry come lately. I went to La Crosse, Wisconsin for 2 years. And in 1 week, my folks packed up a suitcase and off I was on the Burlington Zephyr to La Crosse, Wisconsin in 1 week. 3 weeks later, I got a steamer trunk of all my clothes and stuff and books. And wow. I was like that first son sort of saying, sure, I'll go into your vineyard. But I was much more like the last son who said, over my dead body. Well, my point is just to ask you the question, has God asked you ever do anything special? To do his will, to enter into his vineyard, and to couple up with the work of Jesus Christ? I think it's a good meditation. I think it's a darn good question. Have a good day.